Hi there, welcome back to the Mindset Check podcast. I'm your host, Nisha McKittrick. This is a podcast where we believe that as you take time for a mindset check, you have more power than you think you do. And we also believe that you can teach yourself feelings that you want to feel. We're going to dive into that today. And for those of you who are new, for season 1, taking a look back at my journal that I kept when I was 15 and pregnant, and we're walking through the mindset of that girl. And we're really breaking it down and talking about all the things that come up. And we walk through some things that are kind of hard to handle. Today's episode, I'm really excited about because I think it will be able to teach you a lot of breakthroughs that you can have, what vibrations are, and how you can teach yourself to feel really amazing in this life, okay, no matter your circumstance. And you'll see by evidence of what we learn in my journal today. But just a little warning that this episode might not be appropriate for some audiences. We are addressing sex and when it's consensual and when it crosses the line into manipulation and abuse. It's not graphic or descriptive, but I thought you should know that it's present in this episode. The people in the entries that we read today are Jesse, who is my husband in the time of my journal, and my sister Shelly. She's my older sister by 3 years. Gina, who is Jesse's sister and who also lives in the same small town right upstairs from where we live. And Ashley, who is her daughter, and she's probably about 4 years old at this time. April 11th, 1994. We seen so many people last weekend, and everyone thought Taylor was the most beautiful baby they had ever seen. Friday, we left and stayed at my mom's in Cedar. Saturday, we took care of everything we needed to do in Cedar and all of our visiting and went to Panaca. And on our way, I seen wild horses, which I'd never seen before. They were really very pretty. Sunday, we went to church with Jesse's mom and Walter. And then we came home. Friday, Laura, one of my best friends, told me she was pregnant, and she's 18 and lost. Daryl, the father, lives in Salt Lake. She's 5 weeks along, and she has no clue what to do. I feel so bad for her. I don't even think she loves him. She doesn't know him good enough to love him. Last night was terrible. Taylor had colic, threw up twice. I guess I'll never eat beans again. Ooh-wee. First of all, the grammar. I'm trying to stay pretty integral as I'm reading this. With the exception of changing some names. I'm trying to stay pretty true to how I wrote it. So instead of changing the word seen to saw or something like that to make it more palpable, I think it's better just to read it as is. And so you get to see how that difference is and what I like to see is growth. Okay, so the obvious thing that is just blaring is here I am looking in on my friend who I changed her name. And gosh, so much of what I said is true, and so much of it is not really that far away from the situation that I was in. It's just so interesting. I said she was 18 and lost, and I think she had a lot more going on in the way of, gosh, I feel like I just don't want to reveal a whole bunch of stuff. But I know why I wrote that. Okay, she was 18 and lost. And this guy, he was a lot like Jesse and I in some ways. You know, It's funny that I say she doesn't even know him enough to love him. And I don't think I knew Jesse enough when all of this went down well enough to love him either. I can see why I thought that the situation was different. I don't think Daryl was the kind of guy who had any attachment to her being pregnant at all, you know? And there's something to be said for Jesse, right? You'll see he's obviously much too young and, you know, to take on what we were trying to attempt. But, you know, there's credit there. There is definitely credit for stepping up and not just running away, you know, because my friend later on, maybe we'll just let it play out because I'm sure I write about what happens with her. Okay, let's dive in and do another one. April 13th, 1994. Guess what? Yesterday, Shelley, Taylor, Ashley, and I went to the Old Hickory, a burger place. Well, I parked in front of a trash bin, and then I noticed it said, "Please do not park in front of this bin." So I backed up. Well, in the process, I hit a telephone pole. No dents, just kind of took the paint off. Well, at first, Jesse was mad, but he'll be all right. Today, I went tanning, and yesterday, we watched this show called Heart and Souls. It was pretty good. Shelley bought it. She stayed the last 2 nights. My poor baby is probably sick of being mauled to death between Shelley, Ashley, and Gina. Well, she's probably had it. Oh, all of the aunts and cousin love. Maybe she did need a little breather, and I was probably just feeling that. But gosh, can we get too much love in this world? Probably not. Okay, let's dive into one more. April 15th, 1994. Ooh, the opening line. I'm already taking a deep breath. Okay, here we go. Why does he treat me like this? Everything I say, he snaps back at me. He just acts real ornery. Like he has a hatred towards something. Maybe he's just mad because he feels like he's stuck with me for the rest of his life. He's already told me that he misses... Oh, I can't even say her name. Let me think of another name for her. I wasn't ready for this one. Okay, let's call her Brooke. He already told me that he misses Brooke. Well, if he wants her, why doesn't he go get her? I don't want a man to stick around just because he feels obligated. I want someone to treat me good and someone who loves me because they want to, not because they have to. He doesn't even hold me, touch me, or kiss me unless he's going to work, except for last night, and he acted all nice. But just for one thing. I told him no because I didn't want to get pregnant again. He just came up with... He just came up with, what do you do? Go out and get it from somebody else? Every day? So now you don't want it? He said some pretty rude things, and then he finally got it at 2 a.m. My hell. I'm stupid. I wish I had a good friend here that I could talk to. The only one I know is Gina. Jesse blames it on me that I should go cruise around in this tiny town. But believe me, there's nowhere to cruise. And who am I supposed to cruise with? Ashley? I ought to make a lot of friends by doing that. The company got a crusher, so things should start taking off. Okay, that last sentence is like totally out of pocket. Oh, this one is a tiny bit heavy. Tiny bit. So I've just taken a pause to gather my thoughts, and I just realized something that I didn't realize when I was reading. When I said he finally got it at 2 a.m., I didn't mean he finally understood and left me alone. I meant he finally got what he was looking for. And it's actually taken me a little bit of time to really process this. Because, you process something when you go through it kind of as a whole. And then as I'm going back through it and taking little bits and pieces apart, sometimes there's new things kind of that I recognize, and especially because I'm more mature in my thoughts than I was back then. If you just look at the timing alone, we are on April 15th. So I've had a C-section just over 2 weeks ago. And doctors counsel you not to have intercourse for 6 weeks after a C-section. So that, coupled with the fact that I was fearful of getting pregnant again, and he isn't listening. For anyone out there that is hearing my voice right now, that's not okay. That is not okay. We're going to come back to this in just a minute before we dive into this huge tumbled ball of yarn that needs to be unraveled. I want to talk about the first major red flag that kind of came up in this entry. Him telling me that he misses another girl, his previous girlfriend. I just want to talk about that for a little bit because that's not appropriate when you're married to someone to sit in feelings of like, oh my gosh, I miss her so bad, and I miss holding her, and I miss, there's definitely something that needs to be worked out. And I actually have had friends go through this, but they handled it in a really appropriate way. They worked through their feelings and figured it out versus just being in this longing for someone else, expressing that to your spouse. It's a sign of not being content with your life. And what I want to teach you right now is that this was repeated in his life. So fast forward to, I don't even know how many years in the future. Maybe, I want to say maybe 5, okay? Maybe less. I was sitting on the porch, I remember, with his future spouse, okay? We get divorced and he gets remarried, and there was a circumstance where I encountered her and we started chatting. And we sat down on the steps and she told me that he tells her that he misses me. And I looked in her eyes and I said, girlfriend, he did the same thing to me. He did the same thing to me. And I think for her in that moment, she could see, oh my gosh, he's not doing something to make it better, to get better, to heal, to improve, to gosh, realize what is in front of him. Just like, is it Yoko Ono, right? Love the one you're with. I hope I'm right on that. Love the one you're with. Be committed. So we could call that like the first huge red flag. I mean, really huge red flag. Okay, wait. There actually were way more red flags. When I really sit down and talk about it, I realize how much I really didn't know and understand then. How about these for the first red flags? When we were dating and we started to become sexually active, he told me things like, when you really love someone, it's okay. I was very, very much trained and taught religiously that I should wait until marriage. And he sat with me and told me about his mom. Now, his mom was someone who was very religiously committed. And he would hold my hand and say, oh, I wish you could talk to my mom and really understand that her bishop, her ecclesiastical leader, told her that when you really love someone, it's okay. And she would help you see that. I just wish you could talk to her. Let me tell you right now that the smartest thing I could have said to him is, well, how about we do that? Let's talk to her. How about we do that? Because I was only led into more confusion. And of course, just wanting to believe him in those moments. Another thing he told me is that he thought he was sterile. He thought he was sterile. Okay, that means that he doesn't have the capability to get a woman pregnant. And most men don't know that until well into their marriages or into their journey of trying to have a child. But I didn't know that when I was that young. So again, there's all of this manipulation happening in this relationship. So we have these red flags. And then he further accuses me of cheating on him. He says, what do? Go and get it from somebody every day? Okay, this is so low level vibration. I literally can't even believe that I, at one point in my life, put up with this. It kind of hurts my heart and soul, but it makes me so happy that these words are coming out of my mouth to sort of help other people understand that that's not okay. Whether you're married now or whether you are young and starting to experience life, if he is thinking that and accusing me of doing something, he wouldn't think that if it wasn't present in his own mind. So really let that sink in, because you'll see later in the story how all of that surfaces. Okay, so now let's move into the coercion, the toxic, manipulative behavior of him really pushing himself on me to get what he wants, right? Which is abuse. So I think that that's the first step, is to understand what it is and to call it what it is. You should never be content in a relationship where this is present. Abuse is something that's passed down, and often the abuser, it's what they know, it's what they've been shown in life, but they have to be committed to break that cycle. And if they don't, you have to love yourself enough to act and to do something about it. So if there's ever anything going on in your relationship or in your life that you're really struggling to understand what it is, okay, there's all types of different forms of emotional abuse. There's a whole list. All you have to do is type it in on Google and you can find all kinds of different types of emotional abuse. Anytime that you feel pressured, anything that doesn't feel right in your gut, question it. Learn about it and talk with somebody else about it. It's interesting how right after I said that in my journal, I said, I wish I had a friend here I could talk to. Interesting, right? I wanted someone that I could ask, that I could probably hear the words from to tell me that that's not okay. So just know that there is actually a national domestic violence hotline that you can call. If you don't have a friend, they can just talk to you. You can just ask them questions and it's completely confidential. You can just say, hey, this is happening. Is this normal? You know, and sometimes I think we don't think our situations are bad enough to call a hotline. You know what I mean? But if you don't know someone that you can reach out to, that you feel safe with, that you think is knowledgeable and that you respect, it's a confidential phone call. So just know that. Put that kind of in your back pocket in case you ever have a circumstance where you need to get clear on that. But just remember that if you don't do something about it, and if the other person isn't doing something about it, it will not get better. So what are the things that you can do and what is your part? That's what we're going to talk about. Your part sometimes is as simple as staying and putting up with it, right? And sometimes this happens because we don't know better, just like it happened with me. And lots of times too, it also happens because we don't see that we have other options. We feel like maybe we'll never find another person, or we feel financially like we couldn't do it on our own. So maybe this is where the mindset check comes in, where we understand that we just have to open up to the possibility of the fact that maybe those things that we're telling ourselves, maybe those things are not true. And then start to educate yourself. Educate yourself and love yourself enough to learn and to know that you deserve someone incredible. So there's a level of health that has to be achieved and worked towards, right? Because like attracts like. That's the law of attraction. So when we find ourselves in really difficult circumstances, we have to understand that that also says something about us. So in understanding that it's about you, that gives you enough information and knowledge to help you understand that you can do something to improve your situation. And this goes for every single person, whether you're being abused or whether you just have a rocky relationship. Like attracts like. And even if you are in a situation that you don't think is healthy and you leave that situation and you move into a different situation, if you don't take time to heal before you move into another situation, you just attract the same thing. because that's the vibration. So let's take some advice from nature. This is really cool. The only bird that dares to peck at an eagle is the raven. The raven will sit on an eagle's back and bite its neck. However, the eagle does not respond or fight with the raven. It doesn't spend time or energy with the raven. It just opens its wings and begins to fly higher into the sky. The higher the flight, the harder it is for the raven to breathe. And the raven eventually falls due to lack of oxygen. You don't have to respond to all battles. Not all arguments need you to respond or answer back. If you continue to lift and you continue to rise, they will fall off. Do not waste your time with ravens. If you are committed to raising and improving and getting better and loving yourself and educating yourself, your enemy will fall and will not be a part of your life anymore. The more educated you become about your situation, the more you understand and see things, the more you allow for growth and for options. So to really understand how this all works, you have to understand vibrations, or the law of attraction, or just some fundamental law, right? Of how our world works. Everything has a vibration. Things that we listen to, things we watch, things we read, people that we're around, activities we engage in, everything, even our emotions, vibrationally, feelings that vibrate low on this scale are fear, guilt, shame, anger, anxiety, right? All of those vibrate very low. And then what vibrates really high are feelings like peace, love, joy, and enlightenment. And if you consider that everything has vibrational energy, if you just start with music, for example, it's really easy to understand with music. Because there's music that can make you feel expansion in your chest, and that just radiates and vibrates so high because it is such pure, good music, right? Like classical music, ambient music, these types of incredible musical instruments, those things vibrate really, really high. And what would vibrate really low is like hard rock, right? Like if you think about music that kind of destroys the soul, right? That's like music that vibrates really, really low. And once you understand that the way that vibrations work is that the more that we expose ourselves to higher vibrations, the higher we also vibrate on that scale. The more that we become comfortable, wherever we are on that scale, has everything to do with what we expose ourselves to, the choices that we make, especially in the time that we have that's sort of like our downtime, right? Like the time that we have to check into a movie. Well, what kind of movie do you choose? Or, hey, should we actually read a book? Because that's going to raise your vibration higher. So once you understand that you have this capability of raising your vibrations, or in other words, flying higher like the eagle, to continue raising up, 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 we understand that we can train ourselves. And when we do this, we raise our level of living. So in understanding that we attract something similar to what we are, this story, this experiment really helps. This is how I learned it. That scientists took a magnetometer, which measures a magnetic charge, and they measured eggs and even a mother's womb, right? And what they found is every single time that they put it by the feet, they found a negative charge. And when they put it by the head, they found a positive charge. And when you have a negative charge and a positive charge, that's evidence of a magnetic pull, right? And you know when you hold magnets together and they either repel or they like snap together, right? And that is how, as we vibrate, like Abraham Hicks said, as we vibrate, we attract. So what we are, we attract something like it. Have you ever heard somebody say, this was the words from a woman who healed from a trauma relationship, and then she found someone really amazing. She said, it took me getting really peaceful and healthy and happy to attract a man who was peaceful, healthy, and happy. Buddha taught, what you think, you become. Shakespeare wrote, nothing is unless our thinking makes it so. If you raise your vibration, the person in your life, the significant other that you are committed to, that you have committed your life to, will either come with you, they'll get better, they'll help themselves, or the distance will grow so wide between you until you know everything is in you already, okay, to feel joy, love, and peace. And you deserve that. You deserve it. But sometimes you have to be really mindful about raising your level of vibration. You don't need to be concerned about anybody else. Because like I said, they'll either come with you or more distance will grow, and you'll know. So if you concentrate on raising your level of vibration, you naturally raise the level of vibration of everybody around you. You naturally do that, or they fall away. And if you're willing to do the inner work, all of the things that you expose yourself to, the goals that you're doing, what you're training yourself to now feel, if you're willing to do that work, then you will naturally raise your vibration, and you will look back on your life and you will go, whoa. It doesn't matter if you are in a situation okay, where it was like mine was. But even if you look at the contrast in my life currently, and you see the incredible person that I'm married to now, you'll understand that there was a journey. There was a time when I had to raise those levels, where I had to be committed to becoming a better person. So one thing I want to leave you with before we go is the principle of you find what you're looking for, okay? It's how you teach yourself to feel different feelings, better feelings, and how you teach yourself to become so familiar with those feelings that you continue to vibrate at those levels, right? And that's just by exposing yourself to those things. So you can expose yourself to, feeling gratitude by writing out gratitude. You can expose yourself to feeling love by looking for it. The same way when you write down gratitude, you're really looking for it. You can train yourself to look for love, right, in any circumstance. And when we do that, we raise our vibration. We raise our level of living. So the challenge would be this. Think about right now, out of the blue, just completely off the cuff, 3 people. 3 people and 3 things that you really love about them. Now you have to stay in the thought, because the longer that you stay in the thought and you really recognize them and who they are and how they show up in your life, or what example they are for you, right? It could be someone that you don't even know. Like, you guys, the coolest story about my son. The other day when we were driving home, we were driving by this guy, and he doesn't know this guy other than he sees him running, and he's always wearing this football jersey. And we were driving by him, and he's just like, "Oh my gosh, Mom, oh my gosh." And he's getting super excited. And he's like, "I love this guy, I love this guy, I love this guy." And the guy's still up ahead of us. And I'm like, "What are you talking about, son?" And he goes, "This guy, well, one day I was really having a bad day, and I was driving, and I saw this guy, and he just looks up and he waves really big at me. And it just made my day, Mom. And ever since then, I see him all the time, and he waves at everyone that drives by him. And he's just so kind." So sometimes even seeing evidence of just good people helps you feel love. But the activity is to reach out to those people that you're thinking about right now. Reach to them and either call them, text them, or write them a letter and express it. Because you are teaching yourself how to vibrate in this higher vibration. You're going to teach yourself that this is what it feels like to vibrate there. And when you try to vibrate lower, like when I tried to read this journal to you today, it was hard for me. Okay, because it's really low level of vibration, the things that were happening. It's super low. It's coercion and toxicity and manipulation. Ugh, and it's just like, it's damaging a little bit to my spirit, because I recognize that I don't like the way that vibration feels. And that's what we're training ourselves to do. So no matter where you're at in your life, you can train yourself to always vibrate higher and higher. So that, because it's inevitable, right? That we go through life living, and then we kind of, we're exposed to other vibrations, and that's not fun. And we kind of have to like continually kind of be climbing this ladder to be able to know where we want to be, to know what we want to feel inside, to train our brain the feelings that we want to be used to and that we want to feel comfortable around. So you retrain yourself and you level up in a way where you teach yourself to receive something that truly is always there for you. It's right there for you. You can access it right now. And you can access it at any time. Oprah said, "The life you live is a reflection of what is going on inside of you." So as you take your mindset check today, think about that, not in a destructive way, okay? Don't let it turn into something that isn't good for you. Let it be elevating to you. Let it be encouraging. Let it be the knowledge that you have the power to do something about it. All right, one more time, just so you have the perspective really clear. Oprah said, "The life you live is a reflection of what's going on inside you." Because our stories have the capability of helping each other, we wanted to ask you to share yours. So if you have any insights or breakthroughs or anything that helped you move through your day because of the things that we talk about on the podcast, we would love it if you will share. So send your thoughts in an email to hello@myfriendmisha.com or DM me on Instagram @myfriendmisha And we'll take a minute in our upcoming episodes to share your story with our listeners. Also, please continue to share the podcast. If there's a topic that we talk about that you think might be relevant to some people in your life and you want to share, I would really appreciate that. And again, I always appreciate it if you'll just take the time to leave us a review and subscribe so that you continue to get the mindset and encouragement that you need to help you get through your day. And hey, once again, thank you so much for letting me walk through a small part of your journey with you today. Remember that no matter what your life looks like, you have the capability to rise. Until next time, my friend.